Good evening everybody and welcome to the University Derby Entertainment Engineering Open Day Live Review. This is our first time we've ever done a review of an event, but upon our courses that we do, our Sound, Light and Live Event Technology, our MSc in Audio Engineering, and we've also got a few students also doing Broadcast Engineering here at the moment as well, we regularly go out and partake in numerous different events. And obviously at the moment that can be quite difficult. So I was really excited when we got given the opportunity to actually do an open day recording. Usually on an open day people come in, hundreds and thousands of people come into the university and talk and showcase and hear about what great things go on at this university. And we absolutely love it here in our auditorium because we get people interested in our courses and we set it all up to look beautiful, a little bit like this hopefully, and then we tell people all about our courses. But for the open day a few weeks ago, we couldn't do that. We couldn't invite hundreds of thousands of people in the site because that's not allowed at the moment. So the university decided to live stream a showcase of the best bits of the university, and I was really excited to be given the opportunity for our students on our courses to actually showcase their skills in the outside broadcast environment by setting up local transmission points within the university for live link-ups. And I think it worked really well, so I thought it'd be a really good idea to do a demonstration of this. But one thing that we always do on our courses is, as well as doing an interesting show for the audience, if that's people coming in and a really exciting gig, or a live stream like this, we always then go out and actually use it as an assessment. So I've got 4 students in here today. We're all socially distanced, we're all doing things that we should be doing, but they are currently being assessed while I'm doing this. So if it all goes horribly wrong, I'm afraid they failed. No, not really. Sorry, guys, it's okay. But yes, so this is part of their assessment, which is great fun because actually they can make sure the event goes well and we can do an interesting event today. So today we just want to talk to you about what we did for the Open Day live event and how we went about doing it, who was running it, and we've got some really exciting things planned for you. We've got an interview with the event manager, we've got an interview with our student production manager, and we've got an interview with another one of our students who was part of one of the locations which was particularly technically challenging. So I'm really hoping that you're going to stay with us for this time. It's going to be about, according to the schedule, about 45 minutes long, so please do stay with us. And if you're watching on recording, on catch-up, I hope that you continue watching just to find out a bit more about what our entertainment engineering courses, our Sound, Light and Live Event Technology BSc and our MSc in Audio Engineering, where it comes from and where we really want to try and get our students involved. So we're going to play a little video now of the best bits of the Open Day Live, so you can see the kind of stuff we got up to. So let's have a watch.
Good morning, hello and welcome to Derby Presents Open Day Live.
I am joined by the Union of Student Officers, Corey, who is a union president, and George, who is a vice president of activity.
Over the past few months, many of the university's nursing allied health students have been on the front line working in hospitals and in the community alongside experienced staff. They've been fantastic.
Hi, I'm here at Chandos Pole Street, the home of our fashion and textile students. Do you think that you might be able to give us a bit of a demonstration of the equipment that we've got here today? Start that up. Great.
We're going to do a tour, okay? Now, there are lots of different zones here. We've got 3 main zones for whatever the style of study is that you need to do at that moment. It's not just me here. We've got Ash, the camera guy. We've got Callum on the boom mic. We've got a whole bunch of cable people back there, all looking after everything. The tech guys are freaking out because this could go wrong really, really easily.
Yeah, so this is Auditorium 3, and this is part of our Sound, Light and Live Event Technology degree. And yeah, we've got lights, we've got mixing desks, we've got speakers, all part of our engineering focused degree.
Welcome back. Now we're here in the Fluids Lab with Matt from the technical team for civil engineering and construction.
Welcome to the Motorsport Workshop. I am here with Sabuj, who is the head of discipline of engineering, and Bridie, who is a current student studying here. Tell me about the course that you're studying.
So I'm studying motorsport engineering. and basically like in my first year I did a lot of practical stuff in here.
So in the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy, and thank you very much for watching.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So I completely realised that I just forgot to introduce myself and who I was. My name is Ben Sams, and I'm the course leader, the programme leader for the Sound, Light and Live Event Technology degree. I actually studied the course many, many years ago, and I've been working in the industry ever since until I came to work here. So yeah, that's who I am. We love getting involved in events and doing live gigs, but the one thing that we really love doing is understanding how it all works from a very, very deep technical perspective. So that's where we're coming from. Okay, so we've now got an interview with the event manager for the event, the person responsible for organising the massive schedule. We're looking through that all and making sure it's all worked there, but he had a very, very big team with him. It's a guy called Nick, who was fairly new to the university when he joined us. So here's Nick, can you hear me?
I can. How you doing, Ben?
Hey Nick, good to see you, good to see you. So Nick, I've got some questions for you. Firstly, what was your main role on the event? What would you call yourself, and what did you do?
So on the day I was the event director. So I was sat in the studio over at Castle Donington and making sure everything, all aspects of the event were working, obviously linking into the likes of yourself, the guys from On Productions and various site managers all over the place to make sure everything's in place well ahead of schedule and running to the schedule with that. Overall for the project, I was kind of the main project manager from an ops perspective. So we had a small steering group of 4 of us who kind of led the project from the start, reporting into a much wider team and calling on lots of resources across marketing, student recruitment, and of course yourself.
Yeah, cool. That's a big role to have, Nick. Well done for for staying with us and for sticking that out. That was a big one. Now you were fairly new to the university, and this is kind of one of your first kind of big events you did. How did you find out about our courses and the kind of practical work that we do in order for us to then help you out for this?
Well, to be honest, I completely stumbled across you. So the last lot of open days in the summer, where we did them all on Teams live events, I was event directing all of those. I think we had 151 different sessions running across 3 days.
Wow.
And I had every single one of those playing on a screen or in my ear at some point. I happened to catch you guys doing your talk, and so obviously with my event background, it engaged me, and I sat and watched a lot more of that than some of the others, and was amazed actually what you had available.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Nick. It was really interesting, that event, because obviously back then we were stuck at our homes, pretty much working from home as the rules were back then, and I absolutely loved that event because I was forced to try and be creative and showcase the course from my house. So I put a big green screen behind me, and I superimposed this auditorium behind me and did a open day virtually, pretending I was there. And yeah, so I'm glad Nick saw it, because otherwise we probably wouldn't have had this time here. So Nick, how did you initially feel about getting students involved in such a high-profile event such as this open day?
Well, it's sort of a strange balancing act, because we had a new director and a head of student recruitment and marketing. So it was his big splash he was looking to make. It was my first big set piece as the event manager for the university. But in my previous role, which was mass participation sports, we used to call on lots of support from students and volunteers. So I'm quite an advocate of it personally. But obviously with the size of this and the things that were at risk with COVID and recruitment and all that, it was a risk to try and do it without having ever seen it happen before and knowing the quality and the competency of what we had at the university. So yeah, it was a big risk, but I was excited to explore it. And the more I talked to yourself and the other members of the team, you kind of exuded a confidence, which made me think it was definitely worth a punt.
Oh, excellent. And I'm glad you did, because I feel it worked really well. How did the student experience and how did the students' performance in these outside broadcast elements compare to any events you've run in the past? Was it noticeable there were students, for example?
Oh, not at all. Completely professional. Real credit to them. So they should be very proud of what they achieved, because all the people that we had on site, the site managers and the members of the marketing teams and stuff, they would not have known that they hadn't been brought in professionally as part of the on setup. They conducted themselves very, very well. They knew their subject inside out. They knew their equipment inside out. And perhaps the most telling thing was that they were just so calm about it all. And that's what you need in a big live event like this, is that calmness of approach.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Nick. That's really good to hear. And And yeah, well done students, if you're watching today. That's high praise, and yeah, you all did really well. So yeah, I'm immensely proud of you, and you did well for the course and showcase the university in the best possible way. Nick, was there any highlight or anything that surprised or impressed you about the day in the planning or the duration of the day at all?
Well, I think I've alluded to it slightly already in terms of just how calm and professional the teams were. I mean, you have literally sent them out on their own to set up, and you would have thought they were professionals and doing this years and years and years. So that impressed me. But perhaps I think you find out what people are made of when you come across some difficulties. And we had the one technical difficulty on the day with the library segment. And the way that they dealt with that in the live environment, with probably a huge amount of pressure on their shoulders, with the main lead from student recruitment there as well in that segment. But they fixed it, got it back up and running within no time at all, and it worked. And so that's the way they dealt with the difficulty was the most impressive thing.
Yeah. Oh, excellent. So for the future, how do you now feel, and how does the university now feel about getting students involved in these kind of like high stakes events, essentially?
Well, I'm sure they'll be a lot more positive about it. I mean, they've always been an advocate of trying to involve students in things at Derby anyway, which is one of the reasons I love working here. But for these big ticket events, like I said earlier, it is a risk. But the more exposure they get to how good the students are in the course and how well things are put together, the more likely they are to use it. And as you'll know yourself, I've been trying to get you involved in pretty much every event that's coming our way ever since Open Day.
Yeah, quite right. My calendar it hasn't ever been as full. I don't think it's brilliant. In a year where myself and my students were really expecting not to have any events planned and to really be like making up scenarios and pretending to do things, to have real live events to do is brilliant. So yeah, thanks for that, Nick, and yeah, it's great to see. Nick, that's it for my questions for you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing with us, and it's great. And go have some dinner.
Yeah, thank you very much for all your students' involvement, and yeah, real credit to yourselves and the university.
All right, thank you, Nick. Thank you. So in a minute, we're going to hear from somebody else, somebody called Jake, who was the production manager at a company called On Events Production. Jake, the university for the Open Day Live event used a different company for the main studio, primarily because all of the coronavirus things that were going on. We needed to make sure we had one good, safe venue that hadn't been shut down and that was professionally set up for running this event. And it was really great for us. This company were fairly local to us, and it was great for us and our students to work with an actual company as essentially equals, and to be sending feeds to them. So we're going to hear from Jake now. Actually, Jake's quite interesting because I studied with Jake in the same year as Jake. So it is always interesting to see Jake in a professional context and to remember all those stories and all those things that happened back when we were students. So let's listen to Jake and find out what On Events were doing for that and how we worked with them.
Hello, I am Jake from On Event Production Co. I was the production manager on the University of Derby Virtual Open Day Live. The main studio was based here in our offices, and it is the other side of this wall, just over there. Once the main studio bits have finished, we then cut over to an outside broadcast. The outside broadcast was done by the University of Derby and their entertainment engineering degree courses. I was a graduate myself in 2007 from Sound Light Live Entertainment Technology, so I knew the students would be absolutely perfect and have a really good fit to give me the audio and visual feeds that I need back on my feed for the stream. The stream was pushed out via YouTube Live. There was the main computer, which was here, and then on the outside broadcast they had a vMix to vMix call that was giving me a full HD 1920 feedback along with an audio feed that was mixed on site, so we had a signal that we could push straight out, so I didn't need to edit any of the audio coming from the university. It was a very successful event and couldn't have done it without all of the students from Derby Uni. Have a brilliant rest of your day. Thank you.
Hear from Jake, and yeah, thank you very much to On for supporting us and being with us there. It was a really good technical challenge to get a really high quality feed going up. One thing we're blessed with at the university is really fast internet connection, and we were using the internet a lot for sending our feeds up. So it was great to be able to interface with another company and to really be able to send our high quality feeds up to them, and for them to really appreciate a high quality feed, where during this lockdown they're used to people at home sending up a webcam feed and that kind of thing, and all of a sudden we were able to send up cameras and mixes and audio, or pre-mixed audio to them. They were quite taken aback by it, so it was really good. We're now going to hear from the student production manager. Every time we run an event, we always generally have a student who is kind of in charge of making sure that it runs together, making sure that our technical schedules work. So our student called Tom, who's just walking into set now, he will be telling us and talking to us about the kind of things he got up to and the experiences that he faced. And what we're going to do with this, come on in, Tom. We're going to talk about the actual each location in turn. So we had 7 locations in total, and we're going to talk about those locations and come through and really understand what each one of those took. Can I just double check though, did we actually get Chandos Pole working in the end? No, okay, thank you. So, so Tom, we have the first location, which was Blends.
Yes, so this was the sort of, the main sort of hub we had that we kept coming back to at Ked Road, so sort of a second on-site studio almost. So this is where a lot of the equipment and crew were allotted to for most of the day. I think we had about 5 of the 9 segments, each with a section here.
Okay. Yeah.
So in here we had a setup with 3 different cameras, one locked off with the wide shot we can see here. We had 2 more at an angle like that. So we had one there, which was showing the 2 people on the left, and then another one similarly for the right, so the person in the middle and the person on the right.
So this setup really kind of was almost like a TV studio, wasn't it? And that's quite interesting. We, and this was also quite nice because we set it up the night before and then it just stayed there and we didn't have to change anything, which was very useful because there's quite as you might find out later on, there are quite a lot of changes on most of the other sites and lots of moving. So this one stayed there and we could set it up and be happy with that, couldn't we, Tom?
Yeah, exactly.
Now let's talk about microphones, because we had a slight problem here, didn't we? Could you talk about the microphones and explain why we couldn't do certain things?
So usually for something like this, we'd choose to go with some lav mics like these. One for each person through the studio, as they get a nice close pickup, and especially in a space like this where it's especially echoey, you want to minimise that echo as much as possible. However, because of COVID, we just didn't have enough lav mics for everyone who was coming in and out. For one section, we had about 6 or 7 people all coming out within the space of about 10 minutes. And we just couldn't get that whilst sanitising them and getting them ready for use for whoever needed them next.
Yeah.
So we ended up settling for these gooseneck microphones, which you can see just at the bottom of the frame, which were just positioned below everyone, pointing back up at them.
Yeah. And did that work all right?
Yeah, it worked okay. Like I say, the echo in there was a bit of an issue, but given the space we had and how hard all the surfaces in there was, I think it worked well.
Yeah, quite right. It was quite reverberant in there, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Just out of interest for those microphones, what really troubled me is that with the whole COVID situation and coronavirus going around, you might have seen on the news and that kind of thing, lots of people having, so in particular, the news presenter will wear a nice clip mic, but the guest, there'll be often a microphone on the table at the moment because someone can't go up to the guest and put the microphone on for them anymore, which is what we usually do. That's what we train the students to do. And then once the microphone's been on, people talking, it then gets contaminated. And then what do you do with that? So yeah, trying to move to those microphones, it was the best balance, wasn't it, of trying to make sure that people could hear.
Exactly.
Well, were there any other particular challenges with this location that you experienced?
So this location, one of the, we found out on the day before whilst we were setting up, one of the challenges we had was the sun coming in from the west windows during the afternoon really dramatically changed the lighting we had in there. So for a lot of the segments in the afternoon, we ended up doing a quick run through or run down to the stage before we were live to check the cameras were all balanced properly. They all had a good amount of light going into them, and adjusting them if we needed to for the next section.
Okay, so we did have some lighting, didn't we, in that room?
Yeah.
A few kind of LED Fresnel lights that we had. But is there anything else that you would change or do differently in that space?
Something that would have been very useful for that was blinds.
Yeah.
But there weren't any around in there, and we didn't have any material available to cover up the windows, especially as some of them are at quite a height. So we ended up just playing it by ear with the cameras and adjusting them as needed.
Okay. Let's move on to the next site, which was a little bit more challenging for us, which is the med suite, or the medical suite. Tom, could you just run us through this one and what we have to do here?
So for this one, this consisted of 2 cameras. Both of these were fed into a Blackmagic A10 Mini, which I believe was the first time that this has gone out onto an actual job. In terms of sound, we had someone operating a boom with a shotgun microphone on it. Again, because we couldn't use lavs here because there are a number of different people and the space just isn't quite set up for it. It's not quite big enough for bringing in lavs and a mixing desk. So for the cameras, one of the problems we had with them was because the A10 Mini doesn't accept any SDI feeds, we had to run those both through HDMI.
Oh dear, yeah, that's not good.
So we ended up using a longish HDMI lead, and then for the camera that was quite far away from the A10 Mini, we used a HDMI over Cat5 adapter.
Oh yes, yeah.
Which meant that we could, instead of having a long HDMI that might be too long to even carry the data, we could put it in, have a long Cat5 cable between, and then convert it back at the A10 end.
So the cameras that we usually use for this are kind of like good professional level cameras. What kind of signal do we usually use instead of HDMI, which can often be quite too short?
So usually we'd use SDI, which has a much longer range, about 80 meters. However, the cameras also have a HDMI output, so we just ended up using them and converting them down through the Cat5.
That's interesting. So, and usually, if this was a one venue event that we'd have our nice video switcher with lots of SDI videos in, and we'd be able to switch. But because we were doing 7 different locations, we had to be creative, didn't we, with our video switching and our sources?
That's exactly where the A10 Mini came in. So that was then connected up to a laptop, which could then take that in as a webcam feed, which then went into the vMix call back to on events.
Definitely, a really useful piece of equipment, that isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, the ATM Mini, which can mix 4 separate sources, picture-in-picture, actual fading, cross-fading in and out. Can even do the lovely star wipe and all that kind of thing, which we didn't do. But yeah, and then, as I said, pretends to be a webcam, so the laptop just sees it as a normal webcam. It looks brilliant. It works really good piece of kit. Okay, let's move on. So that's the Kellerton Road sites, I think. For now, anyway, we'll go back to the troublesome one later on. But the other sites, so we'll start with this space, the auditorium down at Markeaton Street, where we're based. Tom, you weren't actually here for this one particularly, because you were up at Kellerton Road for this, but could you tell us through and explain what we did here?
So for this one, again, we had 2 cameras. These were being fed into a PC with a dual SDI capture card, so that meant it could take both the SDIs from the 2 cameras, and then from there we were switching within vMix rather than having a physical video switcher, and then that was output to the vMix call back to on events. In terms of audio, we used lav mics because this space is very easily set up for it. They're already here, and there's only 2 people, or there are only you and the presenter in here using them, so it made sense to use them here to get the best quality for the audio.
No, good point, yeah. All these, we could be safe. They're only on one person. They put them on themselves, and that was it. It's always strange watching myself back on a TV, but there we go. This is nice, and actually this auditorium, our auditorium, we call it Auditorium 3. It's a lovely big space where we can set up and do whatever we want. So in this example, we're over in the corner, and we got a few of our lights out, and we had a nice little showcase, didn't we? It was nice. Well, were there any particular technical challenges in here at all?
This one was one of the easier ones to set up. Something that we'll come on to in a minute with another site at Markeaton Street, I imagine, was the challenges of the amount of crew we had, partially because of COVID. We had someone in here on standby to make a quick 60-second dash to the next live link, which is just around the corner in here, just in case the person I was transporting from Kedleston Road couldn't make it.
Yes, so that was one of the most complex parts of this. Most other kind of departments in the university, most of the subject groups stayed in one place. But the people deciding our subject area decided, oh, we want one in here, one in there, all within about 5 minutes of each other.
Yeah.
Which was, as you say, quite challenging. Which brings us nicely onto what's called the Flume. Not quite what I was expecting, but it's basically a giant kind of water simulation device. Very interesting, and if you watch it closely on the screen, you'll be able to see the water rushing in later on. But Tom, tell us about this setup and how this worked.
So this one was slightly different to most of the others we did in that this was actually using a phone and the camera on a phone in order to capture this. Again, this was through a vMix call back to on events. but we ended up using a phone here because it's a fairly small space. There wasn't much room to set up a laptop and a capture device. So instead we used a phone, and also it means they can walk down along the flume, showcase that, and get a nice wide shot of it all. For audio, we had another boom operator with a shotgun mic, and this was fed into the phone through an interface, which proved quite interesting.
Yes, yeah. And again, I think at this point, were you still travelling down, or just about had got to Markeaton Street at this point?
Yeah.
So, and I just finished my presentation, so we were leaving the operator, a great student called Ben, and I think somebody else, Andrew, on operation. I can't remember.
It was Joe.
Joe on operation, one of our cameramen. Yeah, on operation here, and we kind of left it up to them, and we tested it to make sure it worked. With a really nice boom mic, with a lovely interface, that interface with the audio on the phone. But with this one, we had a slight problem in that the interface that we're using had an XLR in, provided power to the shotgun mic. Nice, simple device. But one big problem with that is that most phones these days don't have a headphone jack, which is what this device needed. So then the person's phone that we're using, we then had to use a USB-C to headphone jack adapter. And by the end of it, I think after we tested it and it all worked fine, the people at On said, yeah, it works great, no worries. But then yeah, all of a sudden, it didn't work, did it, on the event? And the sound sounded a bit rubbish, didn't it, really?
No, it sounded very much like it just defaulted back to the internal mic, which is probably due to the USB-C connection or something along that chain just working its way loose, and it just automatically reverting back to what it knows.
Okay. So is there anything else that you would do differently here, and like any learning experiences for this one?
Crew allocation. I definitely, possibly, we had a couple of people spare in blends at this point, so I would have put one of them down here in order to avoid the quick dash to try and make it here on time.
Yes,
From Kettleston Road.
I definitely did feel bad for the people operating this, just the two of them in one room. Although Ben did have a feed, didn't he, from On, so he was listening to them, and if they had any direction, they could have said. But it went well, and I do love the water effect and watching that flush down in the flume, but not quite the flume that I was expecting. You know, I was expecting to see someone washing down and going, "Whee, excellent." So we'll move on, and then we'll talk about our motorsport environment, which is, again, quite different, out in a workshop. So tell us a bit about this, please, Tom.
So again, this one used 2 cameras, and again, a boom microphone for sound as before. So in terms of getting the first camera in, we used a HDMI capture card on a laptop, and again, through a vMix call. But for the second camera, because we only had 6 cameras in use, or that we could use, and throughout this section we needed about 7 or 8 even, including the flume phone.
Yes,
we ended up using another phone here.
Yeah.
So this phone was on another vMix call with On Events, and then they could switch between the phone and the main camera while still keeping the audio from the main camera's feed.
No, that's clever.
Whilst they switched.
Yeah, so this one, I know we kind of planned it, but then we didn't particularly say that this was going to happen. So I think I kind of surprised you, because it was actually me on that phone camera, and I was lying down like just behind here, like underneath a desk, with my phone kind of poking out, doing those panning shots, just to add a little bit of difference, and that was really good. Why do we have to use the audio from the main camera and not audio from my phone?
Because if we didn't, every time they switched to the phone, you'd just get the phone's internal mic, and you wouldn't get the good quality audio of the shotgun mic that was being used above them.
Okay, thank you very much. We also had another site called Chandler's Pole, which we weren't able to get any footage for, unfortunately. But that had its own challenges, didn't it? Because what they wanted was one interview at the start, and then a very, very quick cutaway to a bit of pre-roll. And in that very quick, I think it was about 1.5 minutes time, they wanted us to move a few meters down to then film a very loud piece of machinery. Yeah, that's quite challenging. Any insights to that? Any challenges there?
So moving all the equipment over, so the switching station with the laptop and HDMI capture card, the same one that we use in motorsport, and then the camera over, in such a short space of time proved interesting. We did it, we got there, but it was very much, we had to ensure cable lengths were okay, and that it could make it over there in that time.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. So that's That's pretty much all our locations. It was a technical challenge. Mainly, one of the biggest technical challenges was trying to get all those link ups onto on to start with and working.
Yeah.
And then we realised that bandwidth is always an issue. So then we struggled to make sure that we had to take certain feeds down and then come up just at the right time. That was a bit painful. But actually, one of the hardest things was trying to make sure that we all were doing the right things at the right time. So how did you manage communication between all 7 sites at this point?
So in terms of communicating between on events and the sites we had around the university, the vMix call has a chat function, so we could type away any questions or information we had for on, and then they can read that and type back to us any answers. But in terms of between sites at uni, we mainly use mobile phones because walkie-talkies just wouldn't do the range between here and Kedleston Road.
That's interesting. Were there any issues at all with maybe lack of communication or anything like that, or did it all go smoothly on the day?
It was important before to make sure everyone knew where they needed to be and when. So there was a schedule shared out for all the crew for exactly where they needed to be at which segment. But I don't think there were too many issues other than possibly at the start just making sure everyone was in the right place to start off with. After that, they all ran pretty smoothly.
Okay. So you were a production manager for this. How do you think being given that role and being given this event to kind of manage and organise, how do you think that's helped your learning experience and kind of helped you develop for your future career?
It's definitely made me feel that I could go back into something like this confidently and just do it again. It's been very useful. We have a module on second year, which is all about the planning and production of an outside broadcast, going out on recce's, finding out power requirements, networking and all of that. But putting it into practice and going out and doing it, you find all those little pitfalls you can fall into and all those problems that could rise up from that.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. So do you think you'd happily organise another event again, or do you want a few months off in between this?
A few months off, but I'd be able to confidently go back and do something similar again after this.
Excellent. Right, well, thank you, Tom. You can now go get some dinner yourself.
Perfect.
I'm not withholding dinner, by the way. Okay, we're now going to move to the next section, which was to talk about the library, which was particularly troublesome. So we're going to bring in one of our students who is actually operating the library section. So one of our students called Joe. So come join me, Joe. Good to see you.
Hi, thanks.
So how are you doing today?
Not bad.
Yeah, good stuff. So Joe, the library section, here it is behind us. What was particularly difficult about this library section compared to all the other venues that we had?
Well, with this one, they had a last-minute change where they wanted to move about 80 metres across the library, down a set of stairs, and then onto the ground floor. So a live moving feed is a lot harder than what we'd been doing previously, where it was all very static.
Okay, yeah. So when you say this was a change, when did we know about this requirement to do lots of walking?
Yeah, it was the day before when we were doing rehearsals. We got told that they wanted to do this, but so I had to figure out quite quickly how we were going to do that and the best way to do it. But we managed to do it, fairly well.
Yeah, definitely. So, what were you doing during this?
Well, I was one of 3 different cable bashers for this one.
A cable basher?
Yeah.
But please tell us what that is for the people that don't know.
Just kicking cables. No, so it's making sure that the cables that they're not getting caught on anything, they're not getting twisted, and they're not causing anyone to trip over, like the cameraman or the talent, for example.
Yeah. Good grief. Yeah. Could you imagine walking down a flight of stairs, the camera operator suddenly gets a bit tangled up in their cable, they fall over. That would be quite painful on a live stream, wouldn't it? Okay, so you were cable bashing, trying to make sure those cables were out of the way.
Yeah.
Did it work? Were you able to make sure those cables were out of the way?
On the most part, yeah. We did have a couple of dropouts at the beginning when we started moving, but we managed to get that fixed up quite quickly and ended up being okay.
So on most, if you watch TV, for example, things very, very rarely drop out, although sometimes if they're really, really far away, they do. So in this case, why? Well, why did it go wrong for us on this occasion, do you think?
Well, we think it's because one of the cables, they got kinked and we didn't notice when we were moving them, or they got caught, because everything was fairly static. It wasn't as if something twisted out of place or came loose. So yeah, we think it was a cable that just kinked up and just lost signal temporarily.
Yeah, so the SDI kind of signal cables, SDI is a brilliant video format for sending really, really high quality uncompressed video down one core, but it doesn't like being twisted and bent lots, particularly on a 40-meter cable drum that has to be connected to another 40-meter cable drum. So yeah, I can imagine that's, yeah, I can understand that, which is why we were a bit nervous about doing this movement, wasn't it? And we did warn the organisers, beware, at this last minute, we can't quickly bring in a load of cable, we've got to use the stuff we've got. But yeah, do you think it worked well? Do you think that in terms of the event, it was good?
Yeah, I think it worked well. I think we managed to pull it off, you know, excluding the little dropouts. But yeah, we managed it well, and we managed to keep all the cables out the way, and I hope it was interesting for people.
Quite right. The really funny thing about this is that we made sure that there was a second camera at the original starting position. So if it dropped out early on, or at least we could zoom in a little bit. And I remember watching this from Markeaton Street, going, "Oh, come on, I hope it works, I hope it works." And it didn't. It dropped out. It went to the wide shot, and one of my other colleagues, Bruce, was in the distance, frantically getting the cables and calling them up. It was quite hilarious to watch. Yeah. So Bruce, if you're watching, it was quite funny watching you there. Okay, so again, you were a student doing this. You've worked a few events before this, haven't you? But how was this as a learning experience for you, and did you benefit from it?
Yeah, I definitely benefited from it. I think it was definitely invaluable. The experience that we got, both like fixing things when they went wrong, and just the experience of setting up as well. It was hugely valuable, and did so much for my confidence as well when coming to events and being able to volunteer myself for something like this again.
Yeah, definitely. That thrill of that live event, even if it's a TV show, essentially, is quite exciting to do, isn't it? I don't know about you, Joe, but I much prefer to be behind a camera than in front of it. So you've done a good job, Joe. But thank you very much for joining me.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
You can go get back on the camera there. So that's good stuff. So that's it for the technical review, essentially, of what we've done today. One really important thing that I just want to share with you is that all the equipment we used for our 7 locations is all owned by our courses. We didn't hire anything in, we didn't borrow anything, everything we used is ours. And actually, because it wasn't a big live gig that we usually do, we had loads of stuff left over, although no cameras and vision mixers left over, obviously. But all this is important because if something breaks, like we had with that situation in the library, our students have to fix it, because if they don't, we can't just get something else or borrow something else from someone else. And that was a really, really good learning experience. And in that situation, what we had in that scenario was 2 40-meter drums of cable, which actually, if we were told about that need for a really, really long run and up and down stairs, we would then need to have hired in a really, really big long cable. But we didn't. We had to use our technical, creative problem-solving skills, and we got there. And yes, it dropped out a little bit, but as Nick, the event manager, said, he was really impressed with the professionalism of the students to then work out what was wrong and get that feed back up. And yeah, it worked, and even on, as Jake said there, was impressive how well we managed to get that up and running. So it would be wrong of me, wouldn't it, to do this without telling you a bit more about our courses. So our Sound, Light and Live Event Technology degree is a 3-year degree, or a 4-year if you take our foundation year, if maybe you've done slightly the wrong courses to get to here. And we are a highly practical, engineering-focused degree. Our course is accredited by the IET, which has been given authority by the government to inspect courses and say which ones are actual engineering degrees. And we have that accreditation to iEng level. And because of that, we don't just learn how to turn equipment on and get it working and set this kind of stuff up, but we learn how to engineer it. We learn how to engineer solutions, to look at the electronics, the physics of how it all works. So we've got a big rig set up in above me today. We've got loads of lights, we've got a lovely LED video wall, which was a very, very nice gift just recently from another company. And we have this because we can explore and understand how it works. So the big rig above me, we worked out the LED video wall is close to 500 kilograms worth of weight on each motor point that we're hanging. And we wouldn't understand and know that if we didn't look at the physics of how that worked and how we can understand how that operates and how we can do it safely, which is really important. Likewise, we look at things like power generation and understanding how we can supply power. So in the situation with the Open Day Live event, for example, power wasn't really an issue because most of it was low power. But actually, and surprisingly, we were doing another event at the same time as this, which was our Freshers event, where the university had decided to put loads of marquees outside on a field and have loads of Freshers fairs, so people coming through, all socially distanced and safe, of course. And we had film nights, we had a comedian come on the Friday night, and that all required quite a lot of power, not just for the heaters for the marquee, but also for big lighting, so when it got dark in the evening we could see, and for the nice sound system that you obviously put in there. So we had to work with our students to understand what kind of power we need and how we can safely run power in an outdoor event environment. We also had a great issue there in our Freshers event where we had problems around outdoor noise. We were essentially outdoors with a big sound system running a nice cinema where you want the low rumble of something that happens. But we had our houses about 20 metres away from us. So we had to make sure that that low rumble that got the attendees going, yeah, this is a great film, didn't annoy the neighbours in the evening. And we managed that. The student in charge of that event designed and configured and even simulated how the sound would sound. And on the nights, we actually went out with our sound level meters and walked around at the perimeter, and we were able to correctly verify that, yes, the design does work. So we do scientifically and engineer big, interesting events. That's what really differentiates us from other courses out there in this, is that it isn't just a live events course that looks how to operate desks and sound equipment and play with exciting equipment. But the great thing is we do sit there and play with exciting equipment, but we actually engineer and explore and understand the fundamentals of it. So a great example, if you do decide to join us in the first year you study a module called Engineering Workshop. Engineering Workshop is really, really great because you look at the really simple bits. Number one, and some of you might know this already, but number one, how to wire a plug. And actually, on the Open Day Live event, we were really, really lucky that all the plugs and all the connectors all worked and we didn't have to wire it. But what I really like today is that we've got 4 students working this event and 2 students brought their toolkits with them today, just in case. Already, one of my students is passing behind me now going, yeah, that's me. All ready to actually fix and engineer and technically repair stuff if it breaks. And that's a great example. One of our graduates once, many, many years ago, went to a workplace and went to go fix something, and everyone there went, oh, okay, yeah, you can fix this. It was really, really broken. It was an old dimmer rack that was completely past its best, and they were able to fix it, just like that. In fact, I think they said, can I have a soldering iron, please? And everyone went, oh, okay, you actually wanted to have a go. And they were able to fix it. We are an engineering degree, giving our graduates the best skills and environment possible to really be an excellent engineer in the live events industry. And the best thing is about this is that the live events industry at the moment is struggling. I'm sure, as you're aware, there's not many events going on. Live events companies are really struggling through this. But our graduates, because they've done an engineering degree accredited by the IET, are able to go further afield, to go into the broadcast world, to be able to go into electrical engineering. We do a lot of electrical work. And we've got graduates all around here. One great example of this is a graduate from quite a few years ago. During lockdown, all of their events, their calendar suddenly emptied. So what did they do? They wrote a web interface for a live event scenario. And if you've not seen this, go take a look on our Facebook Entertainment Engineering page and have a look, scroll down a little bit and you'll see the link to this graduate that designed their own web live events interface. And it's really quite exciting, and I'm hoping to use it myself quite soon. So there we go. That's our Open Day review. I hope you enjoyed it. Do feel free to comment and ask any questions, and we will comment back and say so. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this time and enjoyed this technical review, understanding how it all worked and seeing the kind of experiences that our students have. One thing that we absolutely love doing is making sure that our students get regular practical experience. And I say, I'm really delighted that even in this year, we're able to get students out there, even though it might be on slightly different events. There's no big parties this year, there's no big loud events, but we're still able to get out and about and do real live events at high stakes. If it goes wrong, we know it, and you know it. So we need to make sure that it works as best it can. So well done, students, doing this event. You did a very good job. And thank you to everyone watching us. And if you're interested, do take a look on our Facebook Entertainment Engineering page and look at our courses. Either search Derby University Entertainment Engineering or look specifically at our undergraduate course, Sound, Light and Live Event Technology. Thank you for joining us, and I look forward to reading your comments later. Thank you very much. Goodbye.